Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see you all joining. We are going to give a couple of minutes for other folks to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. But it's nice to see you all. Welcome. It's hard to know. We have people joining from a number of different time zones, so hard to know if we should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's the evening time here in Cambridge. I think for most folks, it's the morning, but it's nice to see you all. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And we will get started in just a minute. I would love to hear as we wait for folks to join. I see some familiar names in the chat. Jen, it's nice to see you here. And Brenda, would love to hear or welcome people just to put in the chat where you're joining us from. And then we'll get started in just a minute. Thank you again for being here and for joining us this morning. Excellent. I always find it comforting to have meetings at this time of day to know that, it's the evening here in Boston. It's nice to know that the day is starting off well and we have a good day to look forward to. So good to hear you're all doing well. Nice to see Central Springs, Indonesia. Good to welcome you all. Well, why don't it looks like we're getting more and more people, so we'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank you all for joining us. My name is Kate Gardner. I serve as Director of the Principal Center here at HGSE and am delighted to join you tonight for this webinar and to get us started. We are joined tonight by Karen Mapp, and we will hopefully walk through this evening an overview and a plan for the program that we have planned for January in Adelaide. We're really excited to be bringing this content in Karen's Institute to Australia in a full 4-day program. Karen has been part of our teaching team. As many of you may know, we've been running programs in Australia for the past 6 years, including a DataWise Institute and the Principal Center Australia. Karen has been an integral member of the Principal Center in Australia faculty, traveling to Australia for the past since 2020 to deliver that program. And the idea for developing this institute really came from that, of just recognizing there was ongoing need and demand for more information about family engagement and how to think about that a little differently. So we're really excited to be offering this program. I will jump to the chase and without further ado, introduce to all of you our faculty chair for the program, Karen Mapp. Karen is the newly bestowed William and Miriam Meehan Professor in Adult Learning and Professional Development. She was just honored with a new faculty chair just within the past 2 weeks at HGSE. We're delighted to introduce her. Karen has been a faculty member at HGSE for 20 years, and her history and work in the family engagement sphere has really changed the way I think across the entire US and around the world that we think about family and community engagement. And we're delighted to welcome her. So with that, Karen, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Kate. And I want to welcome everybody to this call. And what I'm going to try to do is to share with you a little bit about the Institute that we're proposing to bring to Australia. And just know that the reason why we're doing an institute that's specifically focused on family engagement is because we have had many practitioners in Australia ask for this content. I've actually taught in Australia several times across the entire country because people have asked. I've been in Northern Australia. I've been over to Perth. I did a conference years ago in Melbourne where people are really hungry for information on how do we build effective partnerships with our families, particularly all our families, who are from different backgrounds and experiences and cultures. Because what we know from the research is that when our families are partnered with us in this educational endeavor, our students do a lot better. But we also know that there are some practices that are effective in trying to build those partnerships and others that are not. And we know that from the research. And so that's what I will be bringing with some of my colleagues to Australia to share with you. So what I want to do is I'm going to quickly share my screen and talk to you a little bit about what we have in mind and what our goals are for the Institute. So the first thing that we like to do in the Institute is actually define family engagement. What do we mean by family engagement? What's a good working definition of that? And again, I've been doing this work now for 30 years, and I started out doing this research, really asking the question, why and how are families engaged in their children's education? And what I found out was some wonderful, wonderful information about what do we actually mean by engagement and what can that and should that look like. We also will talk about why is engagement important? So I know for a lot of educators, that's a big question, because when we're asking educators to maybe incorporate additional strategies, it's the question is why? I mean, a lot of educators will say, we're doing a lot, particularly teachers. Why do we want to add this additional practice to what we're doing? And so we're going to talk about, what do we see when we engage families? And what we have found out over the years is that engagement not only is great for our kiddos, for our students, but it's really wonderful and transformative for our educators, for our families, for our schools, and for our community. So we'll talk about, in a very user-friendly way, the research on the impact of engagement. Then what we're going to move into is sort of the nuts and bolts of what does effective engagement look like? What's the new normal? And we've used that term after the pandemic because family engagement shifted. Many of us recognize that we couldn't really do our educational practice without our family. So what have we learned post-COVID from how family engagement should look? And then what we're going to do is going to expand your capacity to do this work. And so let me go to the next slide and talk a little bit about what I've learned about how to construct these programs in terms of what we share. So what I've learned over the years is to change practice and to make it effective practice in family engagement. I've had to sort of describe and discuss and teach and have people explore what I call the 3 spaces. So the first space is the one I talked about, which is the research, to really make a case for why family engagement is important. The second space is what? A lot of times people don't have the mental models for what really effective engagement looks like. Many times we find that educators haven't been trained on effective family engagement practice, and so they don't really have the idea of what it looks like when it's effective. And what I learned is that I used to, write case studies about schools that did family engagement really well, or I describe some educators, practitioners that did it really well. And people would read it and say, this is great. This is very inspirational, but how did they do it? And so that's going to be the space that we inhabit as well, is to really unpack, how do we build our practice in family engagement? How do we build our capacity to do this really, really well? And so just a little bit about the program structure and design in terms of the pedagogical strategies that we use when we do an institute. So I will be bringing a team of other faculty, and so you'll be hearing from them about their research, things that they've discovered about effective practice. I do this institute here at Harvard twice a year. When we do it here, it's a 5-day program. We're going to do a 4-day program in Australia. So many of the faculty that I'm bringing with me are veterans at the Family Engagement Institute. We will have you in group meetings, so you'll be in teams where you'll be meeting as groups to talk about what you heard in some of the faculty presentations, and they will be facilitated by coaches And these will be folks who have some deep knowledge in the area of family engagement. We are going to be using coaches from Australia. So these are folks who have already done some maybe wonderful things at their schools. The idea is that you're going to leave the Institute with an opportunity plan, something that you can actually put in place back at your sites, back at your home. So we're going to do the group meetings. We will have readings, which will include case studies, research-informed articles and frameworks, practice-based tools. We're going to have interactive exercises for you to do, and something that we like to do here at Harvard called turn-in talks, where we're not going to just stand in front of you and lecture at you for hours. We're actually going to have you talking to each other, sharing ideas. One of the things that I normally do when we do this work in Australia is have a panel of practitioners from Australia and perhaps other parts of the world that can talk about what does this work look like in the context of your cultures. So a lot of the readings may be US-based readings, but we try to make sure we incorporate different cultures into our teaching. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I think that Kate will put up a slide that actually shows you a draft schedule for the Institute. So you'll see here, we start the program on Wednesday, the 14th of January, and I will start off teaching the first 2 sessions, but then we will have one of my colleagues come in, Dr. Sue Hung, who will be talking about sort of teacher preparation and family engagement. On Thursday, Todd Rogers is a wonderful, wonderful professor over at the Kennedy School of Government, but Todd does a lot of work on effective messaging. And so he'll be talking to you about when you communicate with your families, how should you be thinking about how to construct your messaging to them? Vajra is going to be talking about social emotional learning. So she's going to have 2 sessions. Dr. Sade Harris will be joining us virtually on Friday, and she is a former engagement officer at the Richmond Public Schools. She sat on the senior cabinet there. She'll talk about how they were able to use an engagement initiative to improve chronic absenteeism that they were experiencing after the pandemic. And Sue Hung is going to do another session where she's going to be talking about some of her research on family engagement. Brian Rainville will be talking about how do we measure engagement, because, a lot of times we talk about doing different practices, but how do we actually capture the data so that we can use it both to improve, but also maybe to go to scale with engagement and make it more systemic. So Brian will do 2 sessions, and then we'll have a closing where you'll actually get to share your ideas of what you came up with your opportunity plans with some of your colleagues. And as you can see, we also make sure that you have time for your group meetings to work with your colleagues. So that's what we have in mind for the schedule. And so now I think what we're going to do is perhaps open it up. Or Kate, are you going to go over a little bit more information about the Institute?
I wonder, Karen, one early question, I think we definitely want some questions. We've been getting them in the chat. One immediate question we have is if you can share a little bit more about what happens in those group meetings and what people can expect from that.
Well, what we do in the group meetings is we debrief the sessions, the faculty sessions, but we also start you on a journey of trying to identify what are some of the practices that you can change back at your home sites and perhaps some initiatives you might want to put in place. One of the things that we've learned is that what has made the Family Engagement Institute so impactful is that people don't just come and it's not a conference, first of all. It's just something that I emphasize is that when you're here with us in the Institute setting, it's more like your graduate students for those 4 days. So you're doing your readings, and then during those group meetings, we have small assignments for you to do. Nothing hard, nothing to get stressed about. But what we're trying to do is to build your capacity to do this work well. So what I have really tried to structure in my institutes is an opportunity for you to leave with action steps, for you to leave with something that you can actually put in place or try when you go back to your organizations. So the group meetings are designed to give you the time to think about that, to decide a little bit what you might want to do. We are going to ask you about a challenge or a problem of practice around engagement that you might think about as you come to the institute. So that group time is where you're actually going to get some time to do that kind of planning with assistance from the coaches.
Thank you, Karen. We also have some other questions coming in. I think this one might be more for Kate and the procedures on our end back in the United States. Could you talk a little bit about the admissions process, how people apply? Do they have to put their team together first? Can they come individually?
Great question, Jen. We try to make the application process as easy and seamless as possible. What you can do is go ahead we'll put a link in the chat to the application page. You can go in and the application process will ask you first you'll be asked to just create an account so you can submit it. And then you'll be asked to submit some basic demographic and biographical information so we know where you're coming from, what type of school you're in. We'll ask a couple of short questions. I will say this is the essay responses, if you will. Feel free, those are more paragraph responses. But it's just to give us a sense of what it is that you're hoping to learn, what you hope to gain from the Institute, what you think you'll be able to bring to it. We do offer the team application process where you are able to apply on behalf of a team and submit all of the information. And typically the turnaround time is about a week for the admissions committee to review those applications, and then we'll submit that. You do have the option to, depending on how you are applying, either as an individual or as a team, you can select in particular if you're part of a team, if you want individual invoices or just one single invoice. And then our admissions colleague, Jennifer, who works on this program, is always available to answer any questions. You could submit them if you get stuck along the way, or if there are things we can do to make the process a little bit easier for you, we're happy to do that. So, and again, just if you follow the link in the chat, the process is pretty straightforward for being able to submit all the information that's necessary.
And as a follow-up to that, Kate, thank you, Abby, for writing this as well. But because this is in your realm as well, could you describe this kind of differences with how this program is different from the Principal Center in Sydney?
Sure. I'm happy to. And Karen, since you've been part of the TPC faculty, I wonder if you want to share a little bit about how you think about the content that you have traditionally presented in the Principal Center. As I mentioned at the beginning, Karen has been a part of the Institute faculty of TPCA since the beginning. I wonder, Karen, if you want to share a little bit from your perspective about how the two programs are different.
Well, what has happened is that the TPC program is a wonderful sort of coming together of several of the different ideas from our institutes on different topics. So we're looking at the topics that a lot of leaders are very interested in, about strategy, about leadership, about SEL, about what are some of the leadership theories that we know that help people think about how to be a better decision maker, whether that, wherever they are. If I want to be the best school leader that I could possibly be, what are some of the leadership theories that maybe I should think about when it comes to building a staff and identifying what best practice looks in the classroom. So there's several different pockets of learning that we explore during the TPC program. What's happened is that I teach, as you saw the way we've constructed the Family Engagement Institute, I teach just my piece on family engagement at the Leadership Institute. And what has happened every single year is people come to me and say, we want to do more around the family engagement piece. is there a deeper dive option where you will really get a chance to explore this topic with us in some detail? And so as a result of the yearning for more information on how to do family engagement well, we decided to bring basically the Family Engagement Institute that we do here at Harvard to Australia, because that's been the same request from educators here. We really want to do a deeper dive and unpack how we can do way better when it comes to engaging our families. So this is in response to that request for a deeper dive.
Thanks, Karen. We have a great question in the Q&A box asking for a bit more information about the group meeting and the cohort in general, asking for the group meetings, do you mean colleagues we meet there at the Institute, or we have our own team from our own school? Can you say a little bit more about the group meetings and the overall cohort makeup, perhaps?
Kate, you might want to talk about how we put people in groups.
Sure, I'm happy to. I can say putting the groups together is a seemingly easy, straightforward task and ends up taking hours and hours and a lot of really intentional thought and deliberation. Part of the goal for the group meetings, I always think, in addition to what Karen said, where it's processing the content, making sure you're understanding kind of those easy check for understandings that what you heard is, what's resonating with other people and starting to think about how it applies to your context. It's also about building your network. So as we put those groups together, we think really intentionally about putting people together who may not otherwise have the opportunity to connect. Thinking about people who are in different kinds of settings, in large part because when you interact with others, one thing that we know to be true across all of these programs is the programs really help break down the isolation that can often happen in schools, where you think something that you're struggling with, that you may be the only one struggling with that, or you may be experiencing a challenge that feels really unique. And of course it is to your setting, but there are other people who have experienced something different, something similar, and they may be able to help advance your thinking or help support you in that work. So as we put those groups together, we really look to make sure that we are creating a diverse group of participants so you have the opportunity to learn from others, connect with new colleagues, and kind of broaden that network, while also making sure it's a very safe space. So for instance, we spend a lot of time, if you can believe it, actually mapping where all of your different schools are in Australia, for instance, to make sure that if you are in a small group, you may not feel as comfortable talking about some of the challenges or some of your growth areas if there's somebody from your neighborhood school right next to you, or somebody from, that you interact with a lot. So we spend a lot of time actually mapping where the schools are to make sure that those small groups are an opportunity for you to not only broaden your network, but to really have a safe space to talk about the challenges of the work and to be able to share authentically about what you're doing and to be able to receive that peer feedback.
Great. I think we just have time for a couple more. I know, I'm not sure if Kate or even Abby, who's with our delivery team, I know some people are asking a little more logistically, where exactly does it take place? And is hotel and food part of it, or is that something that people have to find on their own?
Excellent questions. I will give a big shout out because I know some of them are on the call tonight. We've been working really closely with our colleagues at Orbis in the Department of Education in South Australia. They will be hosting the Institute and have really been incredible partners in being able to support us in getting the Institute to Australia and figuring out a lot of the logistics. We will be sharing on the course website some recommendations for area hotels if you're traveling from out of state where you may be able to stay. And then each day We will be hosting during the course of the day. Typically, we'll offer lunch for all the participants and some morning and afternoon tea. We'll also have a reception on one night of the event, and we'll try to get all of the course materials, all the information you need for the program, your curricular materials. Those will all be provided on the course website. We typically aim to launch that website in early December, so you have it before the holidays. But all of that information will be provided on the course website as soon as you register and we receive your payment. We're able to open that up and you get all that information.
And it looks like one more came in. Are there group discounts?
At this time, we don't have a group discount, but I would definitely encourage you, if the tuition for the program is a barrier, or if you need to discuss possibly setting up a different financial arrangement, more than anything, just be in touch with us and let us know anything we can do to support you. We don't have anything planned, but if there's something we can do to meet you where you are, we definitely want to talk with you about that.
And that brings me to the point, we did include this in the email that everyone got about this event, that if you attended tonight, you do qualify for the early bird discount, which deadline has passed, but we are extending it for people who attended this evening or this morning.
And I want to just say one thing about, you probably have figured out why we ask for teams, but if it's not abundantly obvious, we have found that the work actually has roots and stands a chance of actually getting applied when we have people come in teams. When we have people come as individuals, a lot of times they go home, because other people haven't learned what they learned or got a chance to practice what they got a chance to practice. It's very difficult for them to get the work actually executed when they get home. Versus when we have people come in teams, it's a lot more likely that what they learned at the Institute will stick when they get home. So that's why we really encourage people to come in teams, because I've tracked this. I'm all about impact. I want, when I teach, I want it to have impact to help make changes for the people who attend. And what we found is that it just is a lot more, the probability of the work actually finding a place back in the home sites is increased quite a bit when people come in teams.
All right, I think that's all of our questions. You will all be getting a follow-up from me. Kate or Karen, if you have any last words for anyone?
Well, I really hope you consider this. I've done this work all over the world. And what's really struck me is that when I first was asked the first place I went to was Mexico. And when I was first asked to come and share what I've learned about family engagement there, I was nervous because I said, gee, my research has been in the United States, and is it going to be applicable to other contexts? And I have to tell you, I've traveled to Singapore, Mexico, as I mentioned, Brazil, Italy, Portugal, are some of the places I've been, and a lot of the themes about engaging families cut across all places and all cultures. And so I have found that what I've learned about effective practice is applicable, it feels like, regardless of place. I think that human beings, we all share some common characteristics, which is we want to belong and we want to feel respected and we want to be welcomed. And so what I've done is I've taken some of those basic things about humans that we know when it comes to building relationships, and build that into what we know works around family engagement. So I'm really hoping that you'll consider this and that we will see you in January.
Thank you so much, Karen. If anyone has any other questions, we dropped the link again to the program, and we hope to see you in Australia.
Have a good